If you're going to buy a home, try to go through and get bids on the things, the big ticket items before you purchase your house.
Great idea.
Know what that cost is going to be before getting into it. You know, they have a Word document or an Excel and they're just kind of like really quickly trying to write it down. But at the same time, you don't know what's in that contract. And in your mind, you're like, oh, well, he's the contractor. He's the expert. He knows what needs to be in here. But really, he's just putting those down as like the basics. And all of a sudden he's like, oh, we ripped into your shower and we have to change the shower valve. In your mind, you're like, oh, weren't you going to do that anyways?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, no, that wasn't included. You have to assume that everyone's kind of out for you.
Welcome to Homeschool. We are here today with our contractor expert. I'm your host, Jessie Stock, and
I'm Stephen Bahaman, and we're here with Mike Rose from HGTV. Thank you so much, Mike, for being here. So we're going to be talking to him about a few things that come into place when we're hiring a contractor and going through that journey. So thank you so much for being on.
Thanks for having me.
Mini celebrity here. So how long have you been in the business?
I've been in the business, a long time. At least since I've had my company, or just how long have I been doing
your
construction?
Company. Yeah.
So my company is about 15 years old. And then before that, I worked with some like bigger developers for about 10 years. So I feel like I've just been doing this forever.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you today because, we specialize with working with first-time home buyers, and the whole contracting realm is kind of like unknown, and you don't know where to start. And if something goes wrong, you're like, what do I do? I just bought this house. And so we're excited to pick your brain and kind of talk about the process and how to choose someone, and if something goes wrong, or even budgeting.
Those are a lot of good questions.
So what exactly does a contractor do?
A contractor is more or less a licensed professional within the construction industry. And you don't want to get too confused with maybe a handyman who is maybe familiar with different trades, but not necessarily licensed with the state. So with us, one of the things we have to do is make sure that we're bonded, and you want to make sure that someone's insured. And then we're going to go through and basically take care of anything for someone's home. So if you need maybe new flooring, or if you need your house repainted, there's different contractors for different trades. And then there's a general contractor who basically is in charge of multiple trades. And so maybe if you need like a kitchen remodel, you're going to want to hire a general contractor to make sure that he can manage the different subs, or maybe he has expertise in that area as well.
And so you've been on HGTV. How is real life different than maybe the on TV that we see?
Yeah, it's pretty different. One of the main things is really that you have to remember it's TV. So not all of it's going to be true, in the sense where we find a lot of stuff that you'll see as maybe, oh, we have a problem. And, a lot of those problems we try to figure out before the camera's rolling. That way that pressure is not on the homeowner. Because some of these homeowners that we have for the show are first-time home buyers. They had just bought the house and they need help with design and the remodel. And so we come in and we take care of that for them. But they also don't have all these funds just sitting around. So you got to make sure that you manage that correctly. The other part is that you have a production company as well as a homeowner, and then you have guidelines from a network, and then you have timelines that they want to hit. So it can get pretty intense compared to a normal project where you just have a homeowner and you're figuring out what steps you want to do and what things you want to cover.
So you work with first-time home buyers. Is that a specialty, or is that a market that you want to try and get into?
So we do. A lot of our clients don't tend to be first-time home buyers. And one of the main reasons is that a first-time home buyer hasn't really gone through the experience of a remodel normally, and they don't understand some of the values that maybe my company or myself would really bring to the table. And so what would end up happening is they have a certain amount of budget set aside, and they're like, I have to get these things done. Like my floors have to be finished, the paint on my walls, maybe the kitchen's in bad shape. And for them, they don't understand why someone would be more expensive than the other guy. Like they just kind of pool us all together in like one category. And usually some of the services we do, they just have never experienced, so they don't even understand what the difference would be. So a lot of them I wish we could work with, but it doesn't sometimes work out.
Quality versus budget.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes it's not even necessarily the quality, but it's just like the process. Like some of these guys are really good, but they jump from job to job, so the project takes a really long time. Maybe their guys don't show up, homeowners waiting around, and so now they had to take time off of work. And all of the time, when they get done, they're like, I could have just hired someone. I don't think I really saved that much money with some of the change orders and stuff, but it's them coming to terms with those things. And so later on, they'll maybe move on to their next house, or they'll do another project where it's been a couple of years, and next thing you know, they're like, okay, maybe I'm not going to use that same guy. I'm going to use someone else. So they're going to value the cost a little bit differently. It's their time from work and their time at home and what things they don't want to deal with. And so usually people, like for our company, they come to us because they just want to go to work. They don't want to have to worry about, is the guy going to show up? Is this going to get done? Am I going to have to worry about him? Am I going to have to like micromanage this company? And so that's usually our client.
How long do you usually take like on projects?
They vary, from time to time. So if we're just going to do a bathroom and maybe there's just the shower and the vanity, it's not going to take very long, maybe a couple of weeks. But then if you do a room addition, for instance, maybe it's going to take 3 or 4 months. And if you want to gut your entire house, maybe it's going to be 6 to 8 months. So it just kind of depends, and that's why it's so important to have a good contractor who's honest with you and kind of explains the process and doesn't want to just tell you what you want to hear to get the job.
I was gonna see like what are some good questions that a home buyer can ask like a contractor, and maybe like any examples of like any red flags and green flags that we can kind of watch out for?
Yeah. So I tell people all the time, you want to find someone through a friend, you can find them on, Yelp or Google or something like that. But if you do that, then you really need to call references, and you want to ask them, can I see your work? So, some of these guys they'll forge the references, and it's maybe their buddies that are answering the phone or something, and you don't know,
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe they're not, I don't know. But I'm thinking that a lot of them must do that, because you'll hear people say, oh, I saw their work, or I heard that they did a friend, but then they end up screwing up on their house. And you're not going to get like that one that's going to screw up. That's like a common thing with those people. So I would say that you want to make sure they're insured, because just because you have a license doesn't mean that you have an insurance policy on the company. You just have to be bonded. So, and that bond's going to be $12,000. So if you're doing a bigger project and you just bonded and you're not insured and someone gets hurt, then it really falls on the homeowner. And a lot of people don't understand that, like these guys they'll go and they'll get insurance and they'll make the one payment and they'll get their copy of insurance certificate, and then they don't make any more payments. So it looks like they have coverage, but they don't. Or they're exempt from workers' comp, which means they're not supposed to have employees, but they have employees, and then they're in their house, you're in your house, and it's really the due diligence of the homeowner to check. So you can call the broker. The broker's number is usually on the insurance certificate, or you can say, can I be an additional insurer? And those are always great things to add, because as a homeowner now, you're covered before it gets to your policy. And they're going to have to tell you if they don't have it now, because they'll be like, oh, well, I can't make you an additional insurer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Where it's a very simple process. It's like $5 from the contractor to the broker. It's like very simple, and you can just add it to your policy, and then it covers you for all of that stuff. So insurance, actually viewing projects.
Sure.
And the other part is, because our industry is so, I don't know, like not streamlined in the sense where pricing isn't all the same. You'll get a lot of things where you're remodeling your kitchen, and let's say you have 3 contractors and all the pricing's like widely changed. If you find the person and you like them and you're like, I just want to go with the lowest bidder, then say, okay, can we go see a project that you just finished? So you know what quality you're getting for that price. And then talk to the homeowner and say, hey, how was that process? Like, did you get a lot of change orders? Like, where did you start at with your contract? Because a lot of these guys will say, oh, kitchen is X. And then by the time you're done, you've had like a change order for this, a change order for that. Next thing you know, you're way above what you wanted to spend. And you compare it to other bids and you're like, oh, maybe it really wasn't that much cheaper.
So how do you break down the individual costs, like when you're coming up with the bid?
So for us, it takes a lot of time, and the more you're in the business and you get better at it, you kind of understand what your costs are going to be, even without having to shop or ask a trade. So for us, we pay quite a bit of money, and we have a software program, and we have all of our pricing in the software program, and we have templates put together. So if you have like a kitchen remodel or a bathroom remodel, they're all categorized already. So I already know all the stuff that I'm going to need to account for, so you don't forget. In this way, you know, the days of sitting in front of your computer and maybe like an Excel spreadsheet, you're like, okay, I need to account for framing and drywall, and then all of a sudden you forget to add an item, and then that comes back to bite you. And usually that's what happens. These guys aren't bidding it correctly. It looks like it's low, but it's really just they forgot something, and they're gonna make up for it later.
Yeah.
You know, they're not just gonna eat it.
Yeah,
I love that, because I for me in my mind, like I'm thinking contractors, like they're coming in with the paper saying this, putting that in it together, and here you go, you know, and like having that organization is huge, you know, that I think it helps out with not, you know, stumbling or having clients like, you know, come up with a different price at the end of the day, you know.
Oh, totally. I think that's most of the industry. I think most of my competition is, you know, they have a Word document or an Excel document, and they're just kind of like really quickly trying to write it down.
Yeah.
Because they just all want the same thing. They just want the job, right? But at the same time, you don't know now what's in that contract. Yeah, I mean, it's very vague. It'll be like electrical is, you know, $10,000 and plumbing is $6,000. And in your mind, you're like, oh, well, he's the contractor. He's the expert. He knows what needs to be in here. But really, he's just putting those down as like the basics. And all of a sudden he's like, oh, we ripped into your shower and we have to change the shower valve. In your mind, you're like, oh, weren't you going to do that anyways?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, no, that wasn't included. And that's why it's so important to really like try to be as detailed as possible. And that's why for us, we do design plans for everyone, just because it holds everyone accountable. So I know what your expectation level is, and vice versa. So you can sit down and keep our people accountable as well.
And is it customary to pay 50% up front? Is that a myth?
No,
is that true?
No, definitely. Actually, try to go with someone who doesn't need any deposit, because like California,
the work hasn't been done.
Well, yeah, no work's been done. California state law is like 10% or $1,000, whichever is less. Okay. So, I mean, really, if you're going to go do a $20,000 renovation, the max he can ask you for is $1,000 to secure a spot. So maybe someone's going to do that just to make sure you don't, you know, like day of work, you're not calling the day before and being like, I want to cancel. Yeah. But even then, you still haven't started, so it's not like he can keep the deposit.
Yeah.
So for me, we don't even do deposits. The only time we ever take any money is when we're doing architectural plans or design plans, and we have to get started. And one of those things is we're doing most of the work in our office before the client even sees it. So if they back out by the time we present it, we've already, you know, maybe wasted a week. So we like to hold on to some of that deposit just as like a skin in the game kind of thing. But yeah, we don't take deposits for anything. So I would tell any listener, don't give anyone money, you know? Yeah, and try to do like progress payments after work has been done.
Okay, that makes sense.
You know, like if you're gonna do your kitchen, you're gonna demo, so he should have a line item for demo. So you should know what that is. So if he's like, hey, I need a payment for demo and concrete, you're like, okay, well, you saw what the line item for demo is. You saw what the line item for concrete. Don't overextend the payment to where it's too far ahead. You want him to somewhat be a little bit behind, because that's how the payment system should work. That way, you know, like you're kind of staying on track. So you're not getting middle of the project and 90% has been paid. And you're like, oh yeah, but he told me he had to order cabinets. He had to do this. I mean, we should be professionals. We should have accounts certain places. So Ganal, you can get an account. You can put stuff on a credit card. You can have a net 30 on some of these accounts. So really that is to give the peace of mind to the homeowner.
Once we have like your pricing and everything is all set in stone, like what are the next steps of that journey for a homeowner? You know, like what do you guys typically go?
Okay, so you have pricing all set. The next thing is really you just want to make sure you have a contract.
Okay.
So, you know, I know a lot of these, you know, that's like this generation texting, you know, maybe you're talking to your contractor and he's like, oh, you know, your floor is going to be X amount. That's great. Like for you to go through the proposal process, but you want to have something that documents and outlines what exactly this is going to entail, what's my progress payment schedule, what's going to happen if we have change orders, what does that look like? There's just a description in there. Heaven forbid you have anything go wrong, is it going to go to arbitration, legal action? So to me, it's very important to have a good contract, look it over. If you get nervous about it, maybe ask someone who's already done this, like, does this look normal, that kind of stuff.
You just mentioned something about a change order. So when something is going outside of kind of what's been discussed, or let's say there's a problem and something, is faulty behind the wall, then they should be receiving notification of, okay, the things are changing, or there might be a cost associated with this.
Yes.
Okay.
So I get a lot of DMs lately about change orders and how to handle them. How does it work? Because some of these people are reaching out to me, and it's really surprising me that they're going through renovation and the guy is sending them a change order bill after all the work has been done. Ooh. And that's not normal. I mean, a change order is supposed to be something that's brought to your attention before any work's been done to let you know, what do you want to do? So if you open up, first time home buyer, and a big one would be, bad plumbing or electrical in the wall. So he opens it up. He's like, I had no idea. Now we're going to have to fix it. Well, he has to present you a price. You have to agree on that price. If you don't like the price, you then can get other opinions. It's not like you're locked into that person for that one thing. A lot of people feel like they are.
So you can shop a certain part of.
Yeah, it's your house. I mean, exactly. And so, you have the contract for whatever that work was for, I'm just using kitchen, remodeling as a general project. But, you go in and you find problems. He might use those to his advantage to maybe mark up the price. So yeah, you can absolutely have another opinion come in and be like, well, it could be this. And then he could do that.
Got it.
Yeah. So change orders. And then again, don't pay the change order until work has been done.
And should someone hiring you, should they kind of budget for a little extra? I mean, always. I feel like watching the shows on TV, something's always kind of like springing up. So
for sure. I mean, and not only just the problems that come up that you might want to account for, but also while you're doing this, there might be something that you just want to also do, and it's a good time to do it now that walls are open or something. And so you should have some funds set aside for those things that maybe you want to add to the project as well.
Yeah.
And not, that's not always going to be the case. Yeah. Maybe sometimes it's just like, this is what you have budgeted and this is all you're going to do. And that's okay too. But, I always try to tell people, like, at least have like 10% contingency set aside somewhere.
And can you break the project down? Like, okay, well, this is what I have now, and I really want to tackle the kitchen, but like we can kind of come up with a plan to, when I get my bonus to do the bathroom.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, you can do in phases. There's things that you don't want to break up in a phase. I mean, if you're doing one room and you want to talk to your contractor about how you want to strategize, so you're not doing a phase and then to open up walls again.
Yeah,
that's going to cost you more money. So you want to make sure whoever you're talking to is like, yeah, we can do this, and then we can come back and do the next phase. Some things have to kind of go all together. Yeah. You're not going to want to open up a wall and do all your drywall work and then be like, oh, I have to fix electrical. Yeah. Like, you're going to want to fix things that are behind the walls and then work on all the exterior stuff later.
Yeah, that's why we need the expert.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
For contractors, do you guys offer like any warranties on your work, on your craft, on your labor, stuff like that?
Yeah, we do. And I think for the most part, every state's going to be different of what the basic requirements are going to be for a warranty. And those are things that you're definitely going to want to go over with your contractor and make sure they're included in your contract. So we have our own warranties for all of our clients, and it depends on the scope of work. So yeah, it's just, it's all across the board. For the most part though, you're always going to be covered on all the labor. The hard parts is going to be, homeowners need to understand, if they go and buy a plumbing fixture and the plumbing fixture fails, maybe it fails in a year, maybe it fails 2 years, that's not really on the plumber. That's just an unfortunate situation that happens. So sometimes what we try to tell people is, if your contractor's buying the product for you and you had no way of knowing if it was a good product or bad, then go to the contractor and say, hey, like, what's happening here? But if it's something where you supplied it and not him, then he's going to say, well, this is something that you brought. I didn't bring it. So I wouldn't have necessarily put this in because it's not worth the value of me having to rip open the walls later. Okay. And again, that's something that kind of separates, I would say, like good contractors and bad is you might have a contractor who is just so worried about getting the project that he doesn't care the product he puts in because he's not really going to warranty anything anyways. You're going to call him and he's going to be like, oh, sorry, that's not my fault. What
happens like with like once the work is done, and like the home buyer sees everything and they don't like something, they don't like the material or something comes up. Like
he's like,
what happens? What happens there?
Gosh, it's so hard because you try to do your best to explain to them and you hope that they're going to take their time to look over the products that they want to put in. But I mean, we've put counters in and the people just don't like the counter.
Oh boy.
And
so you have to take them out?
And we've ripped them out before.
Wow.
We've ripped out whole showers. They just don't like the tile. And we give them breaks because unfortunately, that's not something that falls on us as a contractor unless we, again, pick the product. But they pick it, they tell us how they want it. But yeah, there's a lot of times where people have like told us like, just take that out. I don't like it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Can you share one of your horror stories with us? Well, obviously the cabinets wasn't great.
Oh man. So this was on HGTV on one of the episodes. We put in the kitchen cabinets. It was like a stained white oak and the stain wasn't really what they wanted, the color. And there was no way to really refinish it. They wanted to go lighter. So you have to like sand everything down. So we ended up ripping out all the cabinetry and you just had to rebuild all of it. It was just that you couldn't save any of it. It wasn't worth stripping them. They had already been stripped to apply the finish. So it happens. And that's it's really important to have someone who's going to, someone who's going to stand behind it. Cause that was something where we had made the error. We should have had them sign off on a sample and we visually showed them and they agreed to it. And then later when we did it, it was like, well, it doesn't really match. And it did, but it just wasn't close enough.
What they wanted.
Yeah. And so we're like, okay, all right, let's take it out. Let's just start over. So that was probably by far the worst one.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's not bad. Like the house isn't falling apart.
No, it's never something that is, structural or anything. It's always cosmetic because people are very visual. And for me, I've been doing it a long time. So for me, I feel like I envision it a lot better. So I already kind of know. And that's why it's important to pick someone who is a specialty in whatever it is. So for instance, like, I'm not a specialist in pools, right? So if someone comes to us and is like, design me a pool, we've done them, but I haven't done hundreds of them. So maybe my envision of it's going to be a little bit simpler and not as exotic. But like kitchens, bathrooms, and houses, we've done so many. I usually can tell people like the things that they need to look out for. So someone who has like a good reputation, has been around for a while, those are going to be advantages. Just like I'm sure with you guys with loans, like
experience.
Experience is so important, right?
Yeah.
You can walk people through the process. Where if you're learning, same time they're learning. It's just you're asking for problems,
Yeah. What is one thing never to say to a general contractor?
Oh my gosh. One thing to never say to a general contractor. I feel like
you can handle it all. You're like,
no, I as a homeowner to say to a general contractor, I guess would be like, I don't know. I wouldn't say what not to say. It would be what not to do. And no one likes someone hovering over them. It's like you're waiting for someone to make a mistake.
Yeah.
And so we would have clients that they're just there and they're just like behind you. And they're just like, so what's going on? How's it going? And I was like, yeah, I'm good. But at some point you're almost worried about making sure that they feel comfortable with whatever you're doing, that you almost forget about what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's when things happen. So I don't like that. I don't like the hovering thing. I get it. I understand why they're there. But at the same time, like you have to somewhat have faith and trust in like the person you hire. But man, the one thing I don't know what to say other than, a lot of people will say,
I can't pay for that.
Well, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Don't.
Budget's
that's
probably
a bad one.
big part of your job.
Yeah. Yeah. When we first meet people, the first thing we usually ask them is we say, what do you want to do? And what is your budget? And I know a lot of people hate when the contractor asks. And I think, you have people that take advantage of that. But for the most part, a lot of us in the field just want to know how to categorize your projects. Do they need to be in phases? How am I going to budget this? What can I do for you? And yeah, everyone's pricing is going to be different. But in a sense, like if you told every contractor you met your budget was X, and then everyone was like, okay, we can do that. Then the next step is, okay, what's the process? What's the proposal like? Do we need to get plans for this? How long is this going to take? Like to me, I always tell my friends and family that don't live close and they can't use this because I would be so mad if they use someone else. But I say pricing should be like your third thing that you ask from a contractor. The first is, do you like them? It's almost like a job interview where you just want to say, like, are these people, do they feel honest? Like, do they feel like they're being sketchy? The other part is like, is their work quality really good? Do you have the right insurance? All that kind of stuff. The third is, okay, what's the cost? If you get hung up on the cost from the very beginning, now all you're doing is you're just weeding people out, but you don't even know how they're coming up with their number.
Sure.
A lot of people will say, yeah, but I gave my plans to 3 different contractors, but a lot of plans are just 2-dimensional. So we don't know what's in the homeowner's mind as far as like what their expectation level is. And that's why I say if you find a contractor that has the same expectation as you do, maybe you saw them through Instagram and you're like, oh, I really like their work. I know they're going to like do a solid. At that point, like the only thing I need to worry about is, are they going to have time to fit me in and then their cost, right? But the first thing you did was look through to find the people you liked. So you didn't go through Instagram and said, like who's the cheapest person? There's no way of doing that. So I tell people that's the first thing you want to see is like their work quality.
Sure.
And then from there, figure out pricing. And if the pricing works out for them, then you can move on to the next step.
What are like a few things that a home buyer can do to avoid getting scammed?
I think vetting the contractor, making sure you don't get too far ahead of payments. Okay. So I don't know how much time we have, but so I had this client reach out, and this was like 2018, and they lived in Long Beach. I live in Long Beach, and we had like mutual friends. And a friend comes to me and they're like, hey, I have this friend that used this other contractor. They've demolished their kitchen. It's been 1.5 years, and the guy's not coming back. So I go to their house.
Oh my gosh.
They're open to the outside. He's removed all the walls, all the windows. They have plywood boarded up and like in like 2 walls, like right here. And they got permits. So it wasn't like the city wasn't involved. And like the guy just kept saying, oh, I need a deposit for your cabinets. Oh, I'm going to buy your appliances for you. Oh, I'm going to buy your countertops. And he just kept asking for money. And he got to the point where it's like $90,000. Wow. And all he'd really done is a little bit of framing and demo. And I'm like, man, how did you feel so comfortable giving the money? And they're like, he just was so nice, But I'm like, no invoicing, no nothing. And next thing you know, like we go there and I look at it, all of it's wrong. He'd never had one inspection. So even like the foundation never got it. We had to redo the plans and the engineering. He had like cut joisting. They ended up spending another, like, I think 90 or 100 just to get everything fixed. So to me, it's so important. And they got that person from a friend. Wow. So everyone's like, oh, my friend used him. Well, yeah, but your friend might have done a totally different job than what you're going to do. Maybe they just did a bathroom model and the guy did a little facelift, and now you want to do your kitchen and you're taking out walls, and that guy has never had any experience in it. He doesn't know how to bid it. So that's why I say it's so important to see the work, talk to a person, and find out what that project is. You want to talk to people who are doing the same thing that you're going to do. Yeah. Sure. So if the guy just did a kitchen remodel and you're going to tear your whole house down, you want to be like, well, this is great, but I want to talk to someone who you did the same thing that I want to do. Again, just to make sure that this is a comfort level for them, that they know what they're doing, they're pricing accordingly and stuff like that.
And so when you hire a contractor, do you kind of oversee the project? I mean, why do you go with a contractor versus like just kind of like going to a kitchen place and saying, okay, I want these cabinets?
Yeah, that's a good question. Usually a kitchen place, they're not contractors. It's a vendor, they have connections, they know contractors, they build a relationship with them, but maybe those contractors aren't generals, they're just cabinet installers. And maybe they don't know how to do cabinets and countertops, but they don't know the requirements for electrical or plumbing or framing and stuff like that. So if you get a contractor, the advantage is that they do have a license in that trade. And then again, though, because it's kind of vague, you want to make sure that they're specialized in that area.
Yeah.
So if you go to a kitchen place and they sell cabinets, I would say, okay, that's great. I'll take references from you, and then maybe I'll source out my own, but I'm still going to do my due diligence and find out, like, you know, where these people do work, what's their quality like, what's their timeline, their process. You just have to vet people so you don't get stuck with money out of pocket. And if you start a project with someone and then you want to fire them, just understand that whoever comes in is not going to want to take over that responsibility. They're going to want to rip it all out. So yeah, we've had people call us and they have everything done, but no cabinets, countertop. And you look and you start like opening up electrical boxes and it's all wrong. And you're like, I can't just put a plug in here, because if you ever have electrical fire, everyone's going to be like, yeah, you were the last one to touch it. So why didn't you say, you know, that this needed to be fixed? It's like, oh, I had no idea. So that's why I tell people, like, most of the time, it's always going to be more expensive if the guy leaves and bails on you, or you're like, this guy's not doing well, I need to kick him out. Like, you want to do it before the work gets started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you probably bring a team with you of all of the people that you've worked with in the past and that you can rely on and do good quality stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So we have project managers and supervisors and stuff like that. And it took a while to build those teams. But even if you have a smaller contractor who's managing himself, that's fine too. It just depends on how much volume they're doing. But yeah, it just comes down to management. Like, if they're really good at managing those jobs and know what they're doing.
Is there a typical budget, or it's all depends on product and tile and all of the little details?
Yeah, it's scope of work.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing is scope of work. I mean, you can, if I tell people, if you're going to do your kitchen, all the same stuff is going to apply in the walls. So if you're going to do prefab cabinets, prefab countertops, the electrical and the plumbing is all the same. So, but there'll be guys that will cut corners on all those areas to make the overall cost less. So you'll have guys that are like, oh, I can do kitchens really cheap. And I always say, okay, well, I mean, you're not able to just do that. Like, you know, I can't just go do that. It's because you're cutting a corner to make it work within your cost. And the homeowner just doesn't know, so they don't catch it. So everyone will, you know, they'll walk into maybe a flip or something and they're like, oh, the whole house has been redone. And then I could go in there and be like, yeah, but all the electrical's old. And they're like, no, but like all the plugs are new. Well, yeah, I know the plugs are new, but that's just cosmetic. It has nothing to do with the electrical and the plumbing. That's all behind the walls. You can't see it, you know, but we can test for those as a contractor. So if you're a new homeowner and you get an inspection report, those inspectors, they're just someone who has knowledge in the industry, but they're usually not licensed contractors. So you have to understand there's usually no accountability for them. So we had a client that bought a house here in Orange County, and it was sold to them that it was a 3-bedroom. They had a home inspection report, everything came back fine. We go in there and we want to do a kitchen remodel, and they're like, no, it's a 2-bedroom. There's no window for the 3rd bedroom. But it was listed that way. The home inspector didn't catch it, and the homeowner wanted to basically go and sue everyone. And it's like, you can't. I mean, there's the inspector isn't really held to any standards, because he's just there as a third party, as like advice, you know. But if a contractor maybe came in while that homeowner was going for the purchase, a contractor could have said, hey, by the way, this doesn't meet egress, so you're not really buying a 3-bedroom, we're buying a 2-bedroom and a den.
So the stipulation is it has to have a window to be a bedroom?
It has to. You have to be able to exit.
In California?
In California, yeah. Okay. So I don't know, maybe in, you know, other states.
Interesting.
Yeah, but here you have to have an exit. So it can be a door, it can be a window, and the windows have to be a certain size here. So it has to be a certain height off the ground. So you can't have like a high window in a room and be like, well, it has a window. You know, it has to be accessible to children to be able to exit, you know, that kind of stuff. So
you need a closet too, or no?
Yeah, you need it. You need a closet. You need a closet, and you need a window. Okay. Yeah, it can be small though. Yeah, you know, they can be pretty small. You know.
For like first time buyers, have you done a lot of work with like renovation financing, like or been part of that process?
I haven't. Years ago, was there like a not a 401? What is it?
Like 203K or?
Yes,
yeah,
that's what it is. Yes,
yeah.
a 203K. It's been a long time since I've done one of those, but yeah, we did one where someone, I guess, got financing from the very beginning. I don't really understand how that whole thing works. For
It's
us as
pretty cool. Yeah,
contractors,
you bring the contractor in at the beginning and they kind of look at the scope of the work and
Okay.
come up with some estimates, and then they build it into the loan.
Oh, they do.
Yeah, and we pay you out.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
You tend to work a lot with first time home buyers or like new buyers?
Yeah.
Fine.
I mean, I don't. It's not because I don't want to. It's just, when you're a first time home buyer, your budget is usually a lot smaller. You just spend all this money on a
Down
house.
payment, closing costs.
Yeah, exactly. But there's things that are probably going to come up during the home inspection report or something that they want to do. And with the first time home buyer with us is just, they haven't gone through the struggles, I guess, of a remodel to really appreciate what, I guess, my company or myself would really do. And it really kind of falls in line with a lot of professionals. Anyone in our industry who does it well or, has a good reputation, they're going to be a little bit more than the next guy. And so for them, they're like, well, I'm okay with just getting by or something. And so usually what happens is they try to stretch that budget as much as possible, where we're going to get more focused in on, but I want to make sure it's done correctly. I want to make sure it's done right. I want to make sure you get a good service. And they're like, I don't really care if the service is that great. Maybe they're just like, I just want new floors in my house, And so they're going to find whoever the cheapest person is. And so it's not that I don't want to work with them. It's usually that they don't want to work with us. They're just like, hey, I'm sorry, it's too expensive or something. But sometimes it does happen. You get people that, maybe their parents, they've seen it go on through their parents, maybe renovations or something. And they're like, no, I've seen, like, I don't.
Or on TV shows, maybe.
Yeah. We did. I mean, the TV show, that definitely helps.
When you're buying a house, can you bring a contractor in to say, like, in your negotiation piece of purchasing the home, like, hey, I don't like the look of this, and then you can negotiate that into your offer to buy the house.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that would be a good time to bring you in as well.
Yeah. My brother, when, my sisters, like, whenever they would have houses that they were going to put offers in, they would always call me, and I would be like, don't do it. Don't do it. And they're like, I just bought it. I'm like, oh no.
Did you sign?
Yeah. That's true. I mean, I've gone out there and told them, and they still don't listen. But it's good. I mean, to have someone as a professional to look in your best interest is really nice, because they're looking at it from a different point of view than a first-time home buyer who's just like, man, I've been looking at houses for a year and I find this one and you're telling me I shouldn't be doing it, but those are conversations you want to have with someone. So, like, what's your goals here? Are you planning on expanding the house? Because you're not going to be able to. Or, hey, you're going to buy the house, you're getting a good deal on it, but you got to redo all the electrical and plumbing. Those are just the things.
In general, I think we have no idea about prices and costs of renovations and
construction. And I think a lot of real estate agents are misled in some of the pricing too, because maybe they have like a hookup where someone, does things really cheap for them, but do they really want to be giving their client that person? Because what if they do a bad job or something? So you want to kind of set a good expectation level with your clients and homeowners in general.
What would be like your top 3 or 5 tips that you give a first-time home buyer, that's looking to hire a contractor?
Oh, okay. So you're a first-time home buyer, you're going to look at contractors, and you're probably not going to have, many referrals. So you're going to be going on like Yelp or Angie's List or something. So you find someone 5 stars. I say it comes back down to bring a few of them out, let them look at the work, and really see, are they going to do me a solid? Like, are they presentable? Were they on time? Look at their work. I mean, you just have to assume that everyone's kind of out for you. And if you do that, you're usually going to be safe. But that referrals, like any way that you can call that person to find out how they were on the last job, I think is like key.
Yeah. Meeting a couple, comparing, making sure they know what they're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, the best is always if you have a friend.
Yeah.
You know, if it just depends on where you're in line. If you're a first time home buyer with all of your friends, like maybe one's really handy and the other one's not, you want to talk to the one who's not, because they're the ones who need someone to help them with everything. So they've usually vetted a few people. If you talk to someone who's like super handy, you know, as a DIYer, they're comfortable hiring someone with a little bit less experience because they're going to coach them and walk them through the process. And if you're not that way, then you're going to be like, well, this guy didn't really do a good job for me. So you just got to weed through those people.
So the tips are do your homework.
Yep.
Look at their work.
Yep.
Make sure your contract is solid.
Oh, for sure. Make sure you have a contract.
Make sure that, you know, you're getting a good vibe, that they're showing up on time and going to do a great job.
Yeah.
Anything else?
If you're going to buy a home and you get your inspection report, try to go through and get bids on the big ticket items before you purchase your house.
Great idea. Yeah.
Yeah. So if your roof shows like signs of wear and it's going to have to be replaced, know what that cost is going to be before getting into it. You know, some of the bigger ones.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to be like, oh, I don't own the house yet. No one's going to get a price. Just send the guy the inspection report and say, hey, like based on, you know, this address, what is it going to cost me?
Well, thank you so much for coming and chatting with us today, Mike. We
Absolutely.
loved getting inside scoop on, you know, what to do and how to do it and if a problem arises. So, you know, first-time home buyers are always kind of skeptical on what that whole process is. So thanks for giving us some info there.
Absolutely.
And if you liked what you saw today, if you learned anything, if you're a first-time home buyer and you want to learn more, there's more to come. Like and subscribe to our channel.
See you next time.